I'm not the kind of person who believes in ghosts, demons, or any of that supernatural nonsense. At least, I wasn't. But what happened a few weeks ago changed everything I thought I knew about the world. It started on a lazy Saturday morning. I was driving around checking out yard sales in my neighborhood. It's something I like to do. You never know what kind of hidden treasures you might find. At one house, tucked away in a quiet cul-de-sac, I spotted an old wooden box sitting on a folding table, nestled among mismatched mugs and dog-eared paperback books. It caught my eye because of the ornate carvings on the lid, intricate swirls and symbols that looked oddly deliberate. "What's this?" I asked the woman running the sale. She looked to be in her late 60s with a weathered face and a faraway look in her eyes. "Oh, that old thing?" she said, waving her hand dismissively. "It's a Ouija board. Belonged to my grandmother. I'm cleaning out the attic." I'd never used a Ouija board before, but for $5 I figured, why not? It would make for a fun story to tell my friends, or maybe a creepy Halloween decoration. I handed over the cash and walked away with the box. When I got home, I set the Ouija board on my coffee table and opened it up. The board itself was beautiful, with the same ornate carvings as the lid, and the planchette was a small, polished piece of wood with a glass window in the center. I texted my friend Claire, who's always up for weird stuff, and invited her over to try it out. Claire arrived that evening armed with a bottle of cheap wine and an equal mix of skepticism and excitement. We dimmed the lights, lit a few candles for ambiance, and sat cross-legged on the floor with the board between us. "All right," Claire said, setting her glass down. "Let's talk to some ghosts." We placed our fingers lightly on the planchette and began. "Is anyone there?" I asked, feeling a little silly. At first, nothing happened. The planchette sat still, and I could feel Claire's eyes on me, her expression saying, "Really?" But just as I was about to give up, the planchette moved, slowly, shakily, to yes. "Okay, which one of us is pushing it?" Claire asked, raising an eyebrow. "Not me," I said, though I couldn't entirely convince myself. We continued. "What is your name?" I asked. The planchette slid again, spelling out Elias. Claire and I exchanged a glance. It was eerie, but still, I figured it was probably one of us subconsciously moving the planchette. That's how these things work, right? Ideomotor response or something. But then I asked, "How did you die?" The planchette moved faster this time, spelling out Fire. "That's creepy," Claire muttered. She pulled her hands away, and I did the same. We laughed nervously and decided to call it a night. I didn't think much about it after Claire left. I put the board back in its box and went to bed. But that's when the nightmares started. In my dream, I was standing in a dark, smoky room. Flames licked the walls, and the air was thick with heat and the acrid smell of burning wood. I could hear someone screaming, a low, guttural sound that made my skin crawl. And then I saw him. A man, or what was left of him. His skin was charred and blistered, his eyes wild and desperate. He was reaching for me, his mouth moving as if he were trying to speak, but no sound came out. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding. The dream felt so real, I could still smell the smoke in my nostrils. I told myself it was just my brain messing with me, a reaction to the Ouija board and too much wine, but the dreams didn't stop. Every night, it was the same. The fire, the man, his screams. I started dreading sleep, afraid of what I might see when I closed my eyes. And then, things started happening when I was awake. At first, it was small stuff. Lights flickering, cold drafts in the apartment, even though the windows were closed. But then one night, as I was brushing my teeth, I saw something in the bathroom mirror, a face just for a split second behind me. It was the man from my dreams. When I turned around, there was nothing there. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things, stress, lack of sleep. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I could feel it. The air in my apartment felt heavy, oppressive, like I wasn't alone. Desperate, I did some research online about Ouija boards and what to do when you've angered something. Every source I found said the same thing. I needed to close the session properly. I hadn't done that. Claire and I had just stopped and walked away. So, I pulled the board out again. This time, I was alone. I lit a candle and placed my fingers on the planchette. "Elias," I said, my voice shaking. "Are you there?" The planchette moved immediately. "Yes." What do you want? HELP. How can I help you? I asked, my throat tight. The planchette didn't move. Instead, the candle flickered violently, and I felt a wave of cold air sweep through the room. And then I heard it. A voice, faint but unmistakable, whispering in my ear, "Find me." I panicked. I closed the session, saying goodbye over and over until the planchette moved to the word itself. I threw the board back in its box and shoved it into the closet. That night, I didn't sleep. The whispers didn't stop. They've followed me ever since. I don't know what Elias wants or how I'm supposed to help him. I've thought about destroying the board, but every source I've found warns against it. They say it could make things worse. So now I'm stuck. I haven't used the board again, but the dreams and the whispers are relentless. Every shadow feels like it's watching me. Every gust of wind feels like a hand reaching out. I don't know how much more I can take. If you're listening to this, don't make the same mistake I did. Don't mess with things you don't understand, and whatever you do, never ever forget to say goodbye. I don't scare easily. I've always prided myself on being rational, grounded, the kind of person who rolls their eyes at ghost stories and laughs off urban legends. But what happened to me last month? It's something I can't explain, no matter how hard I try, and it's been eating away at me ever since. It started when I moved into a new place. Well, not new. It was an old, slightly run-down house on the outskirts of town. The rent was cheap, and I was looking for a fresh start. The place had character, I told myself. Creaky floors, chipped paint, and a basement that reeked faintly of mildew. Nothing I couldn't handle. The first week was uneventful. I spent my days unpacking and settling in, and my nights binge-watching Netflix until I passed out on the couch. But by the second week, I started noticing odd things. It began with the noises. At first I thought it was just the house settling, the kind of groans and creaks you expect from a structure as old as this one. But these sounds were different. They didn't come from the walls or the ceiling. They came from below, from the basement. I'd hear them late at night when everything else was still. A faint shuffling, like something moving around down there, and sometimes a low, almost imperceptible scratching, like nails on wood. I told myself it was probably mice or raccoons. The house had been vacant for a while before I moved in. It made sense that critters had taken up residence. Still, the thought of going down there to check, it made my skin crawl. Then there was the smell. It wasn't mildew. It was something else, something foul, like rotting meat. It came and went, seemingly at random, but it always seemed stronger at night. I tried airing the place out, lighting candles, spraying air freshener. Nothing worked. One night, I finally decided to confront whatever was causing the smell. Armed with a flashlight and a heavy wrench, just in case, I descended the narrow, rickety stairs into the basement. The air grew colder with each step, and the smell. It was overwhelming. I gagged, pulling my shirt up over my nose. The basement was just as creepy as I remembered from my initial walkthrough. Bare concrete walls, a single dangling light bulb, and stacks of old boxes left behind by the previous tenant. I swept the beam of my flashlight across the room, looking for any signs of animals or anything else. But there was nothing, just dust and cobwebs. I was about to head back upstairs when I noticed something odd. One of the boxes in the corner, a large wooden crate, had been moved. I was sure of it. When I first toured the house, I'd noticed it tucked against the far wall. Now it was closer to the center of the room. And the scratches on the floor around it, they looked fresh. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to move closer. The crate was sealed with rusty nails, the wood warped and splintered with age. I could feel cold air seeping out from the cracks. That's when I saw it. The claw marks. Long, deep gouges etched into the side of the crate, as if something inside had been trying to get out. I stumbled back, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The rational part of me was screaming that this was impossible, that I must be imagining things. But another part of me, a deeper primal part, was telling me to get out. Now. I bolted upstairs, slamming the door behind me. That night, I barely slept. Every sound, every creak, sent a jolt of fear through me. I told myself I'd call someone in the morning. An exterminator, maybe, or the landlord. But when morning came, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I didn't want anyone to think I was crazy. Over the next few days, the noises grew louder. The scratching, the shuffling, it was constant now. And then, one night, I heard something new. A low, guttural growl. It was faint, but unmistakable. It echoed up through the floorboards, freezing me in place. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I grabbed my phone and started recording, hoping to capture the sounds as proof. But the moment I hit record, the noises stopped. Just like that. Dead silence. I waited for what felt like hours, but they didn't come back. Desperate, I decided to set up a camera in the basement. I didn't have anything fancy, just an old webcam and my laptop. I positioned the camera facing the crate, hit record, and went back upstairs. I sat in my living room, staring at the live feed on my screen. For hours, nothing happened, just an empty basement. And then, just after 3 a.m., the crate moved. It was subtle at first, a slight shift. But then it rocked violently as if something inside was throwing itself against the walls. The webcam feed flickered, and for a moment, I thought I saw something. A shadow or a shape, moving near the crate. And then the screen went black. I ran downstairs, adrenaline pumping, and found the crate exactly where it had been. But the nails, they were gone. The lid was slightly ajar. And the smell, it was unbearable. I don't remember much after that. I must have run out of the house because the next thing I knew, I was sitting in my car, shaking uncontrollably. I drove to a motel and checked in, not even caring that I'd left all my belongings behind. The next morning, I called the landlord and told him I was breaking the lease. He didn't seem surprised. "You're not the first," he said quietly. He didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask. I haven't been back since. I don't know what was in that crate, and I don't want to know. But sometimes, late at night, I swear I can still hear it, the scratching, the growling, like it's followed me, waiting for me to come back. If you're thinking about moving into an old house, do yourself a favor. Check the basement first. And if you hear anything strange, anything at all, don't stick around. Just leave.